Hello, this is Grace Carriaga Benavides, and this is my analysis of students' work for both the triangle dot problem and the S pattern task. So, my table of contents includes learning objective, introduction of students, students' work, understanding misconceptions, points of confusion, analytic rubric rating, learning gaps, next step to help students understand, and next step in my classroom. So my learning objective for triangle dot problem, the student needed to write an expression to represent the total number of dots in the triangle of an n dot triangle and representing the number of dots on each side. For the learning objective for the S pattern task, the student had several questions to answer, but they also needed to come up with an expression for the total number of tiles in any figure in the sequence. So, my introduction of students. Student one is a freshman at Sherryland Pioneer High School in Mission. She is involved in athletics and has improved in math this year. Student two is a senior at Lamar Academy in McAllen. She is busy trying to decide what school she will choose to go to this fall. So, students' work, understanding, misconceptions, points of confusion. So, student one really seemed to understand the assignment. She did read the problem. I made her repeat it to me. Um, and I noticed she showed me student thinking because she did underline certain phrases in the problem to figure out what she had to solve. Um, she showed a lot of understanding by doing that. She was able to find patterns. I noticed that she did draw the dots, she counted them, and she made sure she knew how many were there. And then when she had to figure out a problem, what she did, she circled each of her sides and she went ahead and multiplied by 3 because she noticed there was 5 and there was 3 sides in total. And then all I had to ask her was, "Well, what can you do to the 15 to get to 12?" And she quickly thought, well, I could subtract 3. And she got 12. So then she tried that with her 13 dot triangle as well. And she noticed that the answer was 36 as well. She multiplied by 3, got 39, subtracted 3. So then she did one more example on her own. I didn't even ask her to do that. She did it on her own and she was able to go ahead and get it. So then she figured out promptly that her expression was n times 3 minus 3. And then she went ahead and simplified it. So she was able to solve it on her own. She did not have any misconceptions, but a misconception that I can see on another student is instead of drawing and including the dots already in the corners as part of those five, like this one, they might have just counted five and then put five more and then five more, adding extra dots. So for the analytic rubric rating for student one, I gave her a 4 for procedural fluency. She used appropriate models for representing her problem and had no errors in her calculations. For conceptual understanding, I gave her a 4. She did have a clear understanding of her concepts and procedures. I made sure by asking her what her task was after she had read the problem. She also used models effectively to help her solve the problem. And for problem solving strategic competency, I gave her a 3. The student had a workable approach. She used mathematical representations appropriately when she drew her models. And now for student two, their work. Student two seemed to understand the assignment. She thought she solved it, but then she got stuck on a certain problem. So she did get an expression. Her expression was parentheses n times 2 plus parentheses n minus 1 squared. And she explained how she got it. She explained, why she got the answer the way she did. But then she came down to question number 5, and it read, if you knew what a figure had 9,802 tiles in it, how could you determine the figure's number? Well, what she did, she wrote out her expression and she made it equal to that number. But she could not isolate her n. She just didn't know how to simplify her problem. So she went back and she started looking at her work and she noticed another pattern again. She went to the original problem and she noticed that she had a pattern where it was squaring itself and then she would just add 1 and square itself and add 1. So then she tried it for her examples on number 2, and it worked. So then she figured out that her equation or her expression was now n squared plus 1. And with that, she was able to solve number 5. And then she didn't even try number 6. She just completely gave up. She did show mathematical thinking, because she did, go back to her problems, her original problems. She didn't give up. She kept trying to do it on her own. However, she did have some confusion, misconceptions. I don't think she had many misconceptions. It was just the problem of not being able to simplify correctly. That was her gap right there, that she just couldn't simplify. She couldn't isolate her end to solve for it. And that's what she had. So, moving on. For her analytic rubric rating, I gave her a 3 for procedural fluency. She did have the right idea, but was not able to solve for n, thus showing that she had errors in calculations. I gave her a 4 for conceptual understanding. She did have a clear understanding of the concept and the procedures of what she is supposed to do. She used the correct models and diagrams when explaining to me after I asked her questions. And for problem solving strategic competency, I gave her a 3. She did use a workable approach to solve her problem. So, learning gaps. For student 1, I did not seem to have, or I did not seem to see any learning gap. She was able to find the relationship of the pattern, and she was able to solve the activity. She used effective models that helped her. For student 2 understood the assignment overall, but she did have a problem being able to simplify and solve. She did find an alternative solution, which was what she would have gone if she would have simplified the problem correctly. So, next in my classroom, to make sure that I close those learning gaps and misconceptions, I would introduce a similar task on my board. I would give my students about 10 minutes to work in small groups to see what answers they produce. I would walk around the room and ask them questions as I go along. I would have them restate the problem. What are you looking for? Do you have all necessary information? Do you see any patterns? After about 10 minutes, I would ask each group to give me their thoughts. Did they solve it? If so, how? If not, why not? Do other groups agree with their answer? Can we have more than one way to solve the same problem? Is it okay to have more than one way? After having a whole class discussion about that one problem, I would give the groups maybe 2 more and do the same. Have that whole class discussion. To check for understanding, I would give them 4 homework problems to work individually and then go over them together the next class time. Then I would give them similar prompts to work in class individually while I walk around to see if students were understanding. And that's what I would do for my classroom. Thank you so much for your time.